I did go back and try to do like a lineage trace, just to figure out who I am, right? Because I know that my family came through the slave ports, which meant there was a lot of abuse and mistreatment and things like that. That can become encoded in one's DNA. When you have men who were like kings and strong warriors in their home country, and then they come over here and they're beaten down by this other race of people, their anger has to go somewhere, right? When they were abused, they turned around and they abused the women and the children that they were close to. We're out here having babies and raising families with all this trauma, and not one person in the family has gone through therapy. I'm the first person that actually finally decided to go through therapy. It started off with, why am I the way that I am? Why am I always looking for acceptance and trying to prove that I deserve love? Why am I always the one that the family decides to turn their back on? You want something different, you have to choose different. And until you choose different, you're going to be living in status quo.
Clarissa, welcome.
Hi, welcome. What was I? Welcome, welcome to my home.
Right? Exactly. Well, it's really good. Thank you for honoring the invitation. It's really good to be here. And I cannot wait to hear more about your story and for the listeners to get the nuggets of wisdom and also just to understand that maybe what they're going through is not their problem alone and they're not alone. There's someone like you who has gone through those challenges and came out different. So thanks for being here.
Awesome.
Thanks for me being here. Yeah. So before we look into who you are right now, there was a point when um, you were born in a different environment, right? That's when you grew up and things like that. But I would like you to take us back to before you were born. How does your family structure looks like and what's happening?
Okay. So if I think about before I was born, because I did go back and try to do like a lineage trace, just to figure out who I am, right? As an African American person, Black American person, a lot of that was taken from us. So I was able to trace initially my lineage back to the slave ports of South Carolina. And then during that search, um, what I knew about was, so my grandmother, who I was raised partially by, her mom passed away during childbirth, and then she was married to a gentleman named Ananias, who was my great grandfather, and I was able to trace back to his parents and his parents' parents, and then that's where it stopped. I do know that they were sharecroppers, aka they worked the slave plantations. They were mulatto, which meant they were um, not, basically, they were raped by their owners. So I have mixed heritage from that aspect. Um, and then I decided to do African ancestry to see, 'cause like, well, at the slave portion, obviously, then my lineage somehow comes from Africa. So I was able to trace that back, which is very fascinating to me. Because, as an African American, you find yourself as a beast with no nation, is what we say, because we don't have a place that, some people say, we're indigenous everywhere, right? But because of all the colonization and things like that, we've been kind of pushed out of all the places that we were. So it's like when you start tracing it, at least for me, it's like it became a sense of pride to say, okay, now I can say, I kind of know where my history goes back to, even if I can't trace it directly. So I traced it back to, of course, Western Africa, to Nigeria, Guinea-Bissau, Cameroon, and Sierra Leone. Um, so I've been doing a lot of research on that. I say all that to say, because I know that my family came through the slave ports, which meant there was a lot of abuse and, mistreatment and things like that. that can become encoded in one's DNA. The stress, the trauma, all of that becomes wired, unfortunately, and they call it post-traumatic slave syndrome. And what you also find with that is that, um, when you have men who were like kings and strong warriors in their home country, and then they come over here and they're beaten down by, this other race of people, um, their anger has to go somewhere, right? So a lot of times what happened is when they were abused, they turned around and they abused the women and the children that they were close to. And then you have the women who are, have resentment, and then you have them feel like they have to have the world on their shoulders. They're taking care of everything and still having to coddle the ego of the man. And then you have the children who are seeing this, and the children have a choice. As a young man, do I, you know, my dad is my, person I'm looking up to right now, of course, and back then they were sold and broken up. But in the time that he's with his father, he's seeing the abuse and things like that. The choice is, oh, is this the right thing to do? This is how I'm supposed to be? Or do I make a choice and do something different?
Mhm.
So, when I was researching that, kind of looking into it started off with why am I the way that I am?
Mm,
Like, why am I always looking for acceptance, and trying to prove that I deserve love? Why am I always the one that the family decides to turn their back on, and, because I have ideas that I want to do with my life and they don't necessarily agree with. Why am I a person that, because of all that I've gone through, I will cut you off like very quickly.
yeah.
um, I will give people that I love more chances, if they keep hurting me, then by the third or fourth time, once I'm done, I'm done. And people are like, well, why, you should forgive Mike, but if I've already given you opportunity after opportunity, then why,
Mhm.
should I continue? So it started with me trying to figure out, like, why do I have these certain patterns? Why have I had suicidal thoughts, but I really didn't have, like, I had some bad things to happen, yes, but why did my immediate thought go to suicide? Right? You get what I'm saying?
Mm,
Um, why did I look to my mom? Why was my mom in constant depression? Why did she feel like her mom didn't like her? My grandmother didn't like her.
mm,
But then I thought about, I'm like, well, sometimes I feel like my mom doesn't like me, and we bump heads. And I can't say that about my grandmother, her mother, because her mother died at birth. But what I learned was her stepmother treated her like Cinderella. So she did not get the love, that a motherly love that she should have gotten from her mom. And I'm sure if my grandmother was alive, my great grandmother was alive, she would have provided that. But when he married someone else that had two kids of her own, my grandmother was literally like the Cinderella. She had to cook for everyone, make sure they were fed, cleaned up, and she could have whatever scraps were left. If she got any clothes, it had to be what they didn't want. They cursed her, they mistreated her, so she didn't get that love from a mother. And then from my grandfather's perspective, he should have been, or great grandfather, he should have been a protector and say, no, this is my daughter.
mhm,
She's going through a lot. She doesn't have her mother. If you're going to be here, you have to take care. But he didn't
mhm,
do that. And so when I think about that, think about my grandmother didn't really get the love from her mother or her father. Then she turns around and has children. Now she has to figure out, and she had them young. She had my first uncle, she got married. She lied and said she was older, and she got married like 16 and had a baby like 16 and a half, something like that.
mhm,
So who was there to teach her how to be a mother, right? So then she has my mother and my uncles, and she did what she knew, and she did the best she could with the information that she had. And it may not have been the best information, but she did what she could. So then my mom comes along, And my mom said, "I don't like the way that my mom treated me. So I'm not going to do that with my children."
Mhm.
And she tried her best, right? There were many things that she was able to change, many cycles that she was able to break, but she couldn't break them all because once again, you can only work with the tools that you have.
Yeah.
So then that leaves me with things that I kind of had issues with my mom. And so I say to myself, when I have children, guess what? I'm not going to do A, B, and C, right? And I'm proud to say that a lot of the curses and things that my grandmother had to deal with and that my mom had to deal with, I did not pass on to my children.
Mm.
However, some did go through the cracks because guess what? I could only work with the tools that I had.
Mhm.
We're out here having babies and raising families with all this trauma, and not one person in the family has gone through therapy. I'm the first person that actually finally decided to go through therapy. But what made that happen was my daughter said to me some things that she didn't like and my children that they didn't like about what I was doing. And again, I saw the pattern. So even though I was able, they came to me with that, I was able to recognize that the point is those things still happened,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So that's why I teach my children it's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to have conversations. Um, it's okay to even tell mom, hey, I don't like this, or let's talk about it a different way.
Mm.
And what I've learned is by being more open about these types of conversations, and being willing to say, yeah, you know what, I made a mistake, and apologize to your kid about what you did or whatever that bothered them. Don't automatically be on the defensive, right? Don't automatically say, well, I'm the mother, I'm the father, is what I say goes. You should listen because you're not always right. Because again, you didn't come in, there's no parenting handbook, right? You don't come in with all of the tools. So you have to be willing to take a look at yourself, do a self-analysis,
Mhm.
but also listen to what other people are saying and identifying those patterns. Because if more than one person is saying it, then maybe it truly is a pattern.
That is true. Wow.
So what that has done for me and my children, the conversations that we have, especially now they're older, they're more open. They come to me with their issues, their concerns, even with their friends. They come for advice and, things like that. For me, even though I've made some mistakes as a mother, and as a parent, being willing to fix them with my children, I think they recognize that. And now that they know when they have kids that they may not be perfect, they can learn from the things I did right,
Mhm.
learn from the things that I did wrong, and then be willing to listen to your children so that we can keep getting better and better as time goes on.
Hmm. That's actually really powerful. So, when you look at your life, you mentioned something about needing to prove love, right?
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned about acceptance. Yeah, it's mainly acceptance, approval, and um, you also mentioned that you used to extend yourself,
Mhm.
um, and in an expense of rejecting yourself as well. So how would you relate that to maybe what happened in the past, with your great parents, great grandparents?
Um, I feel like it started, I wouldn't say started with, but I can see how, when you are born as a slave, for example, you have to do everything right. You have to make sure that your owner, your master is happy so that you're not abused, right? Then when you are in a situations where my grandmother wasn't abusive. Even though she was 16, the person she married was abusive. So then you're having to kind of walk on eggshells and make sure you do everything right
Mhm.
in order to not get hit today,
True.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and then, with my mom, she always told me that she had me because she didn't feel like she got the love from my grandmother. And so she purposely got pregnant with me young so that she could have someone to love her. And I loved her in the way that I knew. I loved my mom. I worshiped the ground she walked on, but it was never enough. It was never the way that she needed and she wanted. And that was a lot of pressure to put on a child. I remember, um, I had to be like 9, yeah, about 9, because I was 10 when my sister was born. You know, my mother in the room crying, in the bathroom crying, and I just walked in, and me comforting her and trying to say, "Okay, these things happen, but I'm here.
Mhm.
I'm here. I love you. I'm here."
Mhm.
But that me being there never took away her sadness, her depression. And so it became like my life goals to figure out how to be enough so that my mother could finally be happy.
Mhm.
And then I think that also translated to other people because some of the bad habits I picked up, because again, I was a fighter. I didn't start out that way, but when I was bullied, I got to a point I just started fighting back. And then when I saw that I could fight back, I became that person you don't mess with, right?
Yeah.
And but then I was trying to always fit in. I've always been different, never quite understood what that meant until I've gone through my spiritual journey. But I've always been a little different, not like in a bad or negative way, but I've always been the one that was willing to go against the grain.
Yeah.
And, my mom, that was one of her pet peeves about me is because she wanted me to do what she felt I should do, love her the way that she felt that I should, live my life the way she felt that I should. I'm like, no, I want to do things how I want to do things. And that's just how I've been since I was from what she said, since I was 2. I've always been very headstrong. And so when I decided to go out and do things my own way and do things how I want, I became like the black sheep, kind of like the family villain.
Yeah.
I and then I my biological father wasn't there. And I knew he existed, and I would have these visions and dreams about, because I was in a bad situation, how he would come and be there for me. And I knew I had siblings and how we were going to have the best relationship. So I spent so many years trying to make myself the best person I could be so that when I came across these people, that they would realize, oh, Clarissa is a good person and she deserves to be loved and we're going to love her. And I did that with not only them, with friends and all of that. And I had more heartache than success with that.
Mhm.
So what I had to finally realize is I had to love myself first.
Mm.
I had to realize that I am enough. And that's why I purposely wore these earrings. It says enough.
Amazing.
And once I realized that I am enough the way that I am,
Mhm.
then that completely changed how I see life,
Yes.
how I project myself to other people, or how I limit myself from people,
Mhm.
how I decide to go on my journey, how I decide to raise my children. I've raised my children completely away from everybody else. We moved to Virginia, then we moved to North Carolina, no family around. Then we moved to Mexico, and now we're here in South Africa.
Mhm.
And guess what? My kids have a different perspective. Um, I can tell you now that if my mom or my granny probably heard the way my kids how they talk and how they feel now,
Mhm.
people from that era would probably, maybe not even like them, right?
Mhm.
And that's not saying there's nothing wrong with my kids, but I've raised them to, we don't sweep secrets under the rug.
Love that.
You have a right to speak your feelings to not only other people, but to mom and dad, as long as it's done respectfully. It's okay to have your own opinion. It's okay to, question things. So we raised them not in the way of don't be seen but not heard,
Mm.
right? You are a human being. You have a right to, I'm going to guide you and give you the best of me that I can, but you can question and you can also say, hey, that's not for me and what I want to do. I want to do something different. See, I wasn't really given that. I was told, oh, you're just rebellious and you should do X, Y, Z. And, you're taking your kids traveling too much and you're spoiling them. I'm like, I'm not asking for any assistance from any of you. You're not helping me babysit. You're not paying for any bills. This is what I want to do. If I want to take my kids and travel around the world, if I can do that and I'm not taking anything from you and I'm not asking you for anything, then why are you concerned?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
So the downside to that though is now my kids want to explore the world and leave me and go do do all the things,
Mhm,
but they have their own mind.
mhm,
And what we've taught them is, when you're and this is a curse that has to be broken, right? Because generations are raised in, silence. Don't speak about what happened to you. If Uncle so and so touched you, we don't talk about that. That was in the past. We don't want to mess up the family by having this conversation. No, my kids know you're going to tell me,
mhm,
we're going to speak about it, and we're going to address whatever needs to be addressed, even the embarrassing things, even the not so good things, even things that may make me angry.
mhm.
We're still going to talk about it and we're going to figure out what we need to do with that information.
Yeah.
And, even now, just thinking about the different things when my uncle passed away, and that was the last child of my grandmother, and he was the uncle I was closest to.
Mhm,
And and I didn't realize he was on his deathbed, but he was just telling me all these family things. He said, "We can't keep this stuff secret anymore." And I had told him that I was going to write the book. My mom knew I was going to write the book because she wanted to. She just never did.
mhm,
So the first book, The Curse is Broken, was also telling my mom's story as well, as intertwined with from my perspective, along with stuff that she told me and also things that my uncles and everyone told me.
mm,
But he told me family secrets and things, and they have been coming out to light, right? Not everybody's going to be happy about it,
mhm.
but we can't always hide those things because if we continue to hide those things, then guess what? How can you break those curses?
Exactly. You're empowering them. You're strengthening them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your story is quite traumatic and it's sad. And I'm wondering now, how was your journey going through that past experience, like looking into the past files and trying to make sense of them?
It was very emotionally draining. I cried a lot. Um, I'm also an empath, so like I said, it was very painful. And then because I'm an empath, and rather than looking at my mom, the things that she did that I didn't like, again, she was a wonderful mother, so I want to make sure I say that. She was wonderful. But she had her faults, just like we all do. And when I started looking at the situation versus me,
Hmm.
it's, well, if I were in her shoes and I felt this way, I started empathizing versus pointing fingers and accusing. I began understanding versus like, how dare you? You get what I'm saying?
Mm,
And when you really start looking at the source of the issues versus just what you see as a symptom, then you can really truly understand a person and understand yourself so that you can start that healing process, healing that relationship, and being able to move forward from that.
mm,
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that with my mother completely before she passed away. Um, but I do feel like I was able to resolve some of those things, spiritually with her, after that point. But what that means for me is making sure that with my daughter and my sons, that any issues that we have, let's talk about them. We're not going to let them fester. It's not going to go years and years and years. Let's talk about it. Let's resolve them. Let's understand each other. Apologize if we need to, and then talk about how do we go on from here.
yeah,
We're not taking any of this into, their next phase of their life.
sure. Now I'm thinking of of a person who's out there, probably watching, and they do see some generational patterns in their family that they do not want to admit because they do not want to open the wound. Um, so what would you say to that kind of person?
I would say to that person that if you break your arm and just because you pretend it's not broken, it's still broken. I would say to them, if you break your arm and you put a Band-Aid over it, it's a pretty fix, but it doesn't do anything to set your arm back in the right space. I would say to them that you have to be the one to make the decision, that shame and embarrassment cannot be the line that keeps you from living your best life and living your purpose and healing what you need to heal, not only for yourself, but for the people around you.
Mhm.
You have to be the one to make that decision. You can't let anyone else tell you, "Oh, you shouldn't say that or, do anything about that because it's gonna impact this person." Well, guess what? If that person didn't do what they did,
They weren't gonna be impacted.
then they're not gonna be impacted.
Mm,
And until we start holding people accountable
mm.
for the stuff that they do, they're gonna continue to do it, and it's gonna continue to perpetuate. So until it's brought to light, it's gonna continue to happen.
Wow, that's true. So with you and your story, did you reach a breaking point first for you to be able to look into these patterns, or was it a situation wherein like it came over time as you're growing?
It came over time. I would say both. It came over time, because I was just trying to figure out why and what's wrong with me, and, am I failing at life? Like, what's going on?
Mhm,
But the real trigger, it started with when my mom passed. And then her youngest brother passed away 7 months after her, and then my last uncle passed 7 months after him, so all within 14 months, along with other family members that passed away, but my mom and my uncles, that was, um, a breaking point for me, and I also had a big fight with my biological father, so all of that was a breaking point for me, and then just seeing how the family was when my uncle passed away, when he specifically told them, "Hey, I want her to manage, the finances,
mhm,
and, we're gonna do the nonprofit organization, the Hardy Brothers Foundation.
mhm,
Whatever money I want to go to that because I know that she's gonna do what I want her to do with it." And they I had family and friends to turn their back on me.
mhm,
They treated me like I'm the worst villain, even though this entire time I was being very polite. I was making sure they were included on everything. I didn't hide anything from them. And it was like, it was like 18,000. Like, it wasn't even a lot of money. Um, especially, splitting it 12 ways after attorney's fees.
mm,
So there was nothing that they were even gonna make them, like, it would have been a week's worth of groceries and that's it. But rather than acknowledging and doing what he stated, they wanted to fight me and try to make me the villain
mhm,
of the situation. One person was so horrible that they told me that my mother is glad that she died so she wouldn't have to deal with me.
mm,
And this person, I had never, during this time frame, I was completely polite with her. I was actually sympathetic to what she had gone through,
mm,
even though she's not the best person. And rather than looking at her with disdain with things that she did to my family in the past, I tried to give her a new slate and like, okay, maybe she's grown up, she's 50, maybe she's better. But she treated me horribly, and then she spread rumors to other family members
mhm,
that they believed, even though they knew the kind of person she was, but they still chose, despite my track record, they still chose to follow her because of money.
mm,
And that was my breaking point with family and worrying about family, at least my side of the family.
mhm,
Um, There's, of course, a handful of people that I still, you know, I care about, have
mhm.
some coming to visit me today,
Yeah.
right? But I release those cords.
Mm,
I'm not sure what people believe different things spiritually. And so in some spiritualities, people believe in reincarnation and they believe that you make soul contracts and you have to come back and redo the life until you get it
Get
the way that you want it, so you get it right. And then there are certain people that you make these contracts with, and you're tethered to them with these cords, and so they come back to you in every lifetime, but it may be in a different capacity.
Mhm,
I completely cut those cords,
mhm,
like, spiritually, like, you know what? I don't know if I believe in reincarnation. I'm studying different religions, so I honestly, I'm just kinda, like, just learning what I can learn
mhm.
so that I can kinda see what makes sense to me. But if reincarnation is a real thing, I don't wanna come back with
Yes.
the same situation, the same people.
Mhm.
It's I just don't.
True. So you just cut the cord?
I cut the cord. I'm living thousands of miles away. They don't have my contact information. My kids don't know who they are.
Mhm,
And what I've learned is when you're dealing with different people and traumas and patterns that they are not ready to face, then they're going to keep throwing their crap on you.
mhm. Yeah.
And I can't if I'm trying to heal and do something better with my life and do something better with my kids, I can't have I can't have that negativity still around my children. I can't be like, okay, well, I'm going to take you to Uncle so and so's house, knowing what Uncle so and so did,
Mhm.
and then expect my daughter to feel safe.
Mm, exactly.
So I refuse to, if you're not willing to heal, if you're not willing to acknowledge, if you're not willing to apologize
Mhm,
for where you're wrong and hear other people out,
mhm,
then I have no room for you.
mm.
So what I've learned is your tribe is out there. Your tribe may not always be blood.
Yeah.
Friends, true friends, are the family that you choose.
Mhm,
So you may not have a blood relationship, but there are some people out there who are going to understand you, who are going to love you,
mm,
who are going to be compatible with you
mm,
that may not be blood. So I know there's a saying that blood is thicker than water.
mhm.
I don't agree with that. And that's just my personal experience.
Wow. So basically what you're saying is that as you're going through the process of healing and transformation, it's also your responsibility to change your environment,
Hmm.
have boundaries.
Have boundaries, and there are going to be people that fall away. It may be people that you love dearly that you would never expect. But you have to be prepared to lose people in the process, and it's going to be extremely painful.
Mhm,
Um, you can also learn how to put these people in a box.
mm,
Maybe don't lose them completely, but maybe you sit them over here
mhm,
to where your space and your peace is protected.
mhm.
You have to learn to protect your peace by any means necessary. Once you heal and you start the healing journey, because the healing journey never stops.
True.
You're constantly learning, you're constantly trying to improve, you're constantly trying to get better.
Mhm,
But you can't keep getting better if someone keeps throwing spikes in front of your car and busting your tires. If someone keeps putting sugar in your tank, I'm using this figuratively,
mhm,
but it could be lies, it could be, um, you know, down talk, bullying. It could be, someone who is always in a bad situation and that wants to make you feel bad because they're in a bad situation, right? You have to learn how to compartmentalize all of that in order to fulfill your purpose that the universe aligns to you. That's part of why we're here on this earth, is to learn how to be good people, learn how to be better people, learn how to help others. But you can't help others who don't want to help themselves,
mhm. That's true.
friends, family, or foe.
Mm. And their burdens is not yours to carry.
Theirs is not yours to carry.
Mm. Wow. So I know that healing is not an easy journey, and it's much easier or like bearable at least when you have support around you. Who was there to help you carry the load?
My husband, 100%.
Mhm,
Um, he has tried to understand, the situation. And, he's a Gemini. So he provides that balance. He's like, okay, well, I hear you on this situation, but have you thought about it this way?
mhm,
And, we'll bounce things back and forth. And most of the time he's like, yeah, you need to go ahead and let this go.
mhm,
But, he kind of keeps me from immediately cutting off.
Mm.
He kind of like makes me think about it and, try this, try that, you know, but even once he sees, he's like, yeah, I'm not even going to try anymore. This is done.
Mm.
He encourages me to go, to write. He encourages me to go to therapy. I've encouraged him to go to therapy with his own, situations.
Mhm.
Um, we we're kind of like yin and yang. We balance each other.
Yeah.
And I don't like I said, I don't take anything from anybody. I will if I love you to a certain extent. Like I will be a doormat to a certain point, but once I get to that point, the
You're done.
ugliness comes
Yeah.
out and it's not gonna be pretty. Whereas he is kind of
Mm.
he's slower.
I think I'm more like him. I don't remember cutting anyone off. People just fall off if we don't speak
Yeah, so
anymore.
he doesn't cut anyone off. Like he'll quit talking to him maybe, he won't like
You give space.
yeah, he
Yeah.
gives space.
Yeah.
And if they want to come back through the door, then they can.
Mhm.
Whereas I'm like,
Loved.
don't come back, don't look at me. It's done.
We're not friends.
We're not friends. If I see you walking and you're on fire, I'm gonna say, "Oh," because I'm a good person. Hey, they're on fire, and I'm gonna
Mm.
keep walking. But I would at least tell somebody to come help you.
Mhm.
But I'm not letting you back into my space to hurt me again.
Mm.
That's where we differ. So he tries to balance me
Wow.
with that. So he's that. And then my children in different ways.
Mm.
My oldest, because he was I got pregnant with him at 17 in 12th grade,
Mm.
and we had to grow up together. And we grew up in Little Rock. They had what they call banging in Little Rock, with a lot of gang violence and things like that. So I was a lot harder on him because I thought I had to be, as a single mother that didn't have the father support.
Mhm.
So I learned a lot in raising him. And, we've had conversations because I did try to hide a lot of the issues between my mom and me with him.
Mhm.
But what I realized, it backfired because he thought that I was the problem. And I was, uh, going against his beloved mama.
Mm.
And it wasn't until he kind of heard some stuff and we actually sat down and had a conversation. And I told him everything. He better understood why I am the way that I am.
Mhm.
And that helped quite a bit.
Yeah.
So then I said, okay, well, with my younger two, I'm going to be more open and I'm not going to put all the trauma dump on them. Like, don't trauma dump on your children,
Mhm.
but share enough insight in a way that's digestible to where they understand that the way that they're living is not something that's guaranteed across families. Like, you have a mother and a father, you're middle class, you've never had to want for anything. That's not how many people grow up.
Mhm.
And so I start having just little conversations with them to kind of point out, you're blessed, you're privileged. Let's go and, volunteer and let's do these different things, having those conversations. And my daughter, she's like my mirror, right? Because that was another big thing that prompted me, because she was mimicking
Mm.
my actions. And there were things that when I saw it in her, I'm like, no, 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 you shouldn't do that. My husband like, well, who did she get it from?
Ooh. Ooh.
And I'm like, you know what?
Mm.
So I had to go into intense, like,
Mm.
inner shadow work to say, okay, this is not, now that I see it,
Mhm.
I can't no,
Yeah.
we got to do something different, because she's not going to go through the same things that I've gone through. So, I put them in therapy and things like that. And like I said, our relationships are wonderful.
Mm.
And I can see, again, I'm okay with them choosing to do something different, being able to speak out about things. My youngest, he's the most to speak out. He's like, he'll say, uh, Mom, don't blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. It's like, well, Mom, I'm like, I'm done with this person. He's like, well, Mom, did you think about blah, blah, blah? So they're my literal mirrors, because I shared my journey and why I am the way that I am, but I also shared what I want to be and what I strive to be for them. So if there's any little thing that may seem like a backslide, they call me out on it.
Mm.
Whereas, back in the day, you were not allowed to call your parents out on
Oh, no.
their BS because you would be in trouble. I'm like, but I give them that space to say, hey, mom, you know, don't do that, or I don't like that. Okay, let's have a conversation about it.
Hmm. That's really powerful, more especially the part where you spoke about your daughter copying you. I
Mm-hmm.
think we often forget that we as people, not just children, people in general, we learn more by observing
Mm-hmm.
than actually listening. You
Mm-hmm.
can tell me all you want, but I will literally do what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
because it makes more sense.
Yep.
And I just wonder, like, how many parents out there are actually living their lives with that in mind,
Mm-hmm.
because they actually reprimand their children for the exact same thing that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
It's like, do as I say, not as I do, but you're my role model. So,
exactly.
and if what you're doing it often, it's going to become embedded in my DNA as well. Because as you are aware, that scientifically proven that your grandmother's DNA, her cells, her actual cells are in your body right now.
Mm.
So my grandmother's cells are in my body along with my mother,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So yeah, it's
It's
all
fascinating. Yeah,
connected. It's
exactly.
all connected.
Wow. I actually wanted to go to the DNA part, but like, let's not, because I was thinking, um, there's a study that says sometimes some people are more susceptible to other behaviors than others because of their DNA, right?
Mhm.
And then you have this DNA of trauma. You're
Mhm.
most likely going to easily respond to some traumatic events than someone who may not have been exposed to that trauma. You haven't been exposed to it before, but because of your DNA makeup, you end up, steering toward that direction,
Mhm.
inviting the troubles, and the chaos and all those things. And then your your nervous system also just chase that thrill, or um chase that, whether it's hurt or pain, or whatever.
Mhm.
You end up in a situation where in your right mind you didn't think you would want to be in,
Mhm.
but you just keep on going back all the time because it actually feeds your.
Yeah, it provides comfort because that's what your DNA knows.
Yes.
And it's like we said before, it's embedded in
Yes.
there. And for me, like, I didn't think, even as a child, like, I'm not supposed to be happy.
Wow.
Like, I'm not supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to just exist. I'm supposed to, do what I'm supposed to do, and that's it. And what I realized is because there's probably hasn't been a lot of happiness in my lineage
Hmm.
for many, many years or centuries or whatever.
Hmm.
Happiness was like just this thing over here
Wow.
that some people get and some people don't, but it wasn't meant for me. And I think that's because it was embedded. So I know in my lineage there's depression, there's suicidal ideation, there's alcoholism, there's rape, there's abuse. I mean, there's so much in my lineage
Mm.
that, again, is embedded.
Mm.
So I had to look at those patterns. And again, I had to make the decision.
Hmm. And I like the fact that there's hope. I mean, we can always rewire our DNA, right? We
Yes.
can heal and regulate our nervous system. We can have new thought patterns. And I love the fact that you went through the journey of doing that, and then you can speak from the other side, having lived the experience and now being this new person.
Hmm.
Um, I would also like to know, you had a support system. And I love the fact that you have also created this culture of transparency at home, where even your children can hold you accountable. What if a person who may think that I do not have the resources that you have? How can I approach this?
Um, you know, I didn't. Yeah, I've had the support system, but they couldn't always give me the support that I needed because they didn't know how to give it. And I got it with my husband and my children, but even then, my children are children. You can't put that type of
Mm.
pressure and stuff on them. My husband, like I said, he's been amazing. Um, what I tell people and what I tell the people that I work with is the only support system you need is you.
Mm, true.
You and what if you believe in a higher power, whatever that is,
Mhm.
whether it's the universe, whether it's God, whether it's Allah, whether it's Buddha, Buddhism, whether, whatever, that's all you really need.
Mm,
The I call my program Inner Mojo Rising because it has to come from within.
true.
It has to start there. And when you start it within, I can guarantee you it's going to change not only your perception, but your energy. And what that's going to do, you're going to find that your support system is going to find you.
That's true.
They will find you. But it has to start with you.
Mm,
No one can make that decision for you. No one can, we can say, hey, you need help. Hey, you should do this. But until you say, you know what? Yeah, I should do this. And not just I should do it, but I am going to do it.
yeah.
You can't just stay in the ideation phase. You have to move into implementation, right?
Yeah.
So when you do that and you really start implementing those things, I have met the most beautiful, loving, caring people on this journey.
Wow.
And they are not related to me by blood at all, but I consider them 100% family.
Mm,
There's no judgment, there's understanding, there's not a need to leech off of one another, there's not a need to outdo one another. My place is my place, my story is my story. Same there. We have an even exchange of energy, and it's love. Even in the negative things that could happen in each other's lives, it's still love.
mm,
And honestly, I would have my tribe over many people in my birth family any day.
mm,
So the thing is, you're never alone. I felt, like I said, alone. Even when my family, before they passed away, I felt alone in many, many, many ways. Even though like I said, I had husband, children, all that, I still had a sense of, I'm
yeah.
still kind of over here.
Mhm,
Um, but yeah, once I really just started embracing and loving me, like I love me.
mhm,
I love I'm appreciative of even the negative things because they help to not only make me who I am today,
mm,
but I can share those. I can't, like with the kids that I work with currently,
mhm,
when I first went into the classroom, I said, hey, here's my story.
mhm,
It connected because guess what? They're going through those things
yeah.
and they thought that they were alone in what they felt. And when I said, raise your hands if you have gone through anything like what I've described that I went through and I've overcome, the whole class raised their hand
Mm,
and they looked at each other. I said, see, put your hands down. I said, now, how many of you thought that you were dealing with these things alone? They all raised their hand.
wow.
You're not alone.
Mm,
And when people realize that they're not alone, and they work on themselves, they're going to find those people. They say iron sharpens iron, right?
mhm,
So even though, you don't have to have the person who's, a billionaire or whatever. That's like, there's no perfect person,
mhm,
right? There's no person that has it all together all the time.
mm,
But when you find your tribe that you are walking up that same hill, it may be a different hill, but you're walking up
mhm,
at the same time, at the same pace.
true.
That's what you need because they can hold you accountable.
Mm,
You hold each other accountable. And when you hold each other accountable from the heart
mhm,
with knowing that you have a similar path, to me, it's more powerful.
that's true.
It's more powerful.
Wow. So you have 5 books that you've written.
Yes.
That's a lot of books. So one of them, which is actually the first book you've written, is called The Curse Is Not Broken.
What is the
The
curse is
curse is
broken,
broken,
not
not me.
me.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. Um, so that like the title itself on its own carries so much weight. And you've also taken us through your entire journey from
Mhm.
before you were born to the environment you were born into and things like that. Oh, like what was your purpose of writing that book?
The purpose of writing that book was to release
Mm.
because trauma, curses, that could bring a lot of shame.
Mhm.
People always want to put on the good face. They want to be Instagram ready, right?
Mhm.
They want everyone to believe everything is perfect. But that's not how life really is. Life is ugly. Life is full of ups and downs. And when you allow the things that are swept under the rug to control your narrative, then you're not defining yourself. These people are. And when you are not able to define yourself and you let someone else define you, then they'll define you in any way that you want them to or that you allow them to. And then eventually you may start believing that crap.
Mm.
You have to start defining yourself. So I made a decision I'm releasing all of this.
Mm.
You know, there's nobody in my family that can say, oh, well, she did this or she did that. Guess what? I told it on myself. You
Mm.
can't hold it over my head anymore. And guess what? The person that did this then, you know that person. You don't know who I am now because I don't deal with you. So
Mm.
you keep that person that you think you know over here because I don't know, that's different,
Yeah.
right? But you can't control who I am. And I say that the curse is broken, not me, because there were many times I did have suicidal ideations, right? And because I was able to break that curse and other curses, I'm still here. So
Mm.
that's why I say the curse is broken, not me, because despite all that I've gone through, I'm not broken.
Yeah.
And even with, and I wouldn't say I'm not broken. Maybe I am broken in some ways, but there's beauty in broken pieces of glass,
Mhm.
right? There's, broken crayons still color
That's true.
beautifully.
Yeah.
So I'm not, broken to the point to where I'm irredeemable.
Mm.
I'm worthy. I'm here. I'm supposed to be here. I have purpose.
Wow.
And that's what matters to me.
Hmm. So for someone who may see patterns right now, but they feel overwhelmed, what would you suggest to be the most practical first step that they can take?
Start writing.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be a book or anything. Just write down the things that you don't, that you feel like may be issues with yourself. Write down the things that multiple people have said about you. Like people have said to me, girl, when you talk, you'll cut somebody with your tongue. Basically, if you make me mad enough, I will say some of the most hurtful things to you and don't care about your feelings in that moment. But if you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back, right? And I've heard that a lot. So I had to sit back and think about
Mm.
why do I, why can't I just walk away? Like, why do I have to let this person pull me to that point?
Mm.
So think about those types of patterns that you're dealing with, and then why?
Hmm. That's a very good question. Why?
hmm
Right? 'Cause-
And don't just look at yourself. Look at people around you,
Mm.
family, friends, mother, father, grandparents. Look at all of it, and then ask yourself why.
Mm.
And then once you ask yourself why, ask yourself, is this what I really want? Is this going to help me achieve the life that I want to achieve, the peace that I want to achieve, the purpose that I want to achieve?
Mm.
If not, then how now that I understand the why, how do I move past it?
Mm. Because as you're talking, you reminded me of how, like, so many people, think I've said it before as well. We like shifting blame to others, right?
Mhm,
You're like, you made me do this. You made
mhm,
me say this. But did that person really make you do what you did? Or did you make a decision
mhm.
to respond to whatever that they were doing the way you did?
Exactly.
And it goes back to what you're saying, because if you now focus on yourself and ask yourself why you're doing it, then you take the power back and then you get to decide for yourself,
Mhm.
how you want to present yourself, and how you want to relate to
Mhm.
others and things like that.
Exactly. Like that one person in my family that said to me, "Oh, your mother must be happy she died so she wouldn't have to deal with you." The old me would have cursed her from the Africa to the US to the Antarctica to the moon and back. And I would have went to her house and said, "Come outside, let's fight." That's the old me.
Mhm.
But the new me decided to respond to her. I basically said, I know you're hurting and you've gone through a lot, and
Wow.
that's not my fault. And I'm not going to take ownership or allow you to bring me down because of whatever you're going through. But I want you to know that you are loved, and I hope that you get the help that you need, and basically have a good day.
Wow.
A few years ago,
No.
mm-mm.
Something different.
It would have been something totally different. But when I look at her, I realize she has a lot of trauma and drama that has not been dealt with.
Mm.
And until she deals with that, she's going to be the person that she is.
Wow.
And nothing I can do to change that, because I was very kind. I was, doing all the things, thinking that I could build a relationship with her, thinking that, oh, maybe something. Th- Looking back, there was nothing I did to her to make her say the things that she said to me.
Wow.
But I can't carry her negativity. I can't carry her anger. She has to deal with that, and I wish her the best.
Wow. That's actually very powerful. Yeah.
It takes a lot, and I tell you, it's not an easy path to be on. And I can't say, I tell people, just because you find peace
Mm.
and that you're trying to practice that doesn't mean you're not still a warrior. So I tell people all the time, I will love you and I will respect you. I will do everything I can to protect my peace. But if you push me too far, I will still flip this table over. Just, but
Yeah.
it's still gonna be in there.
Mhm.
I know some people are, flower children and maybe they've never had that, but I just know for me, I should tell you, I don't mess around. But I've learned balance. So the biggest thing for me, what I've learned in my spiritual journey has been balance.
Mhm.
How do I balance that? I don't always have to pop off,
True.
right? I don't always have to defend myself. I don't always have to do any of that. Like, if you want to talk about me, talk about me.
Mm.
As long as it's not messing with my faith, my finances, and my family, say what you want.
Mm. True.
Before, it used to bother me, but now that I know who I am,
Mm.
what you say don't bother me.
Mm. I love that. Love
But now if you come to me
that.
in my face and, try something, then we have to see which direction that goes in.
True.
But, I don't know that I'll ever be completely like, turn the other cheek, because it's just not who I am.
Mm.
But I've learned to turn it, but it will come back if you push me to a certain point.
I get you.
And that's really like messing with my husband and my children. Like, if you can cuss me out and do whatever, you can even talk about them. But if you physically try to,
Enter your space.
yeah, enter
Insert
my
yourself.
space and try to be demeaning or, whatever in my space when I've tried to get away from you,
Mm.
then
It's a different story.
it's a different story.
Yeah.
So I want to say that out loud, not as like a brag or anything like that. I don't want people to think that the healing journey is like a switch, that it flips and all of a sudden nothing bothers you.
Mm.
Like, you're still human.
Yes.
You can learn, you can make changes, you can do all these things, but doesn't mean that you might have a moment of weakness or a moment where you kind of forget what you learned and you kind of go back, but you doesn't mean that you fail. It just means you get up and you keep trying.
True. And we also need to remember that the body keeps count. No, the body keeps score. What is that phrase?
So nobody keeps score. Well,
Yeah, I think so. The body remembers.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like, as
Oh, the
much as
body keeps score. Yes,
yeah.
yes,
So as much as you're evolving and transforming and growing, you might still get triggers. It's just a
exactly.
matter of how you respond to those triggers. And like, I loved what you just said, because really does emphasize and encourages people that whenever you are in a moment of weakness, just remember that you're a human
Mhm,
and it's part of the journey. You just need to choose differently. Yeah, I think that's the difference, right? You might still get the trigger,
mhm.
but the difference is how you respond after you've healed.
Right? But, you may respond the old way because guess what? It's still embedded in your DNA.
And not.
And sometimes it happens so quickly
Mm,
that, your natural response kinda comes to the surface. So your trauma response has to be trained.
mm,
It's not gonna, happen overnight. It's gonna be, you know, what the saying is, "The universe will keep sending you lessons until you learn it."
mhm,
So you may have the same situation happen in different ways from different people.
mm,
And if you keep responding the same, you're going to say, what? And that was one of the things that I had to learn. I'm like, why do I keep meeting people like this? Why do people keep doing me like this?
mm,
Because I didn't learn my lesson.
mm,
So God, the universe, whatever you want to, I'm not trying to, people have different beliefs. I want to cover all encompassing beliefs, right? But whatever you believe in, you know, the lessons will come
mm.
until you
You learn.
until you learn them.
That's beautiful. So right now you're at a different space. So looking back at your entire journey, what would you say is something that the young Clarissa would actually truly understand now? The truth she would finally understand now.
It's funny you say that because I actually wrote a poem to myself,
Yeah.
to my younger self, and then I also use AI, which, but I use AI and I put a picture of my younger self
Wow.
with me now. And basically what I would tell her is that you are enough, you are powerful, you have purpose, and you don't have to prove anything to anybody but yourself.
Mm,
That's what I would tell her.
that's powerful. And what word of encouragement would you give to someone out there who may be facing the generational patterns or don't even want to face them?
I mean, I would just tell them, if you want something different, you have to choose different.
Mm,
And until you choose different, you're gonna be living in status quo. So is status quo what you want? If it is, stay where you are. But if it's not, you gotta choose different.
mm. Oh, that's really powerful. Thank you so much. This
Awesome.
was very insightful. And yeah, I really learned a lot because I'm looking at my generational patterns now. I'm like, it's not looking good. I need to do
It's not
something.
pretty. It's
No.
not pretty, and it can offend some people when you're looking through them, but
Mm,
their feelings right now are not your concern when you have to do what you have to do for not only you, but your descendants.
sure. And the people around, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, friends and colleagues, everyone.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. Thank you so
No
much.
problem.
So,
Not perfect, just present, not afraid to begin.